Hi everyone, welcome to this evening session of the Women Who Code Pune chapter in the interview prep series. Today's session is on dynamic programming, and let's have a couple of minutes on what we do at Women Who Code, what our mission is. So this slide projects a one-liner on our mission. We are a global non-profit, and we recognize that the power of our platform is to be a force that affects change. We want to empower women in technology careers. Our vision statement, we want women to be proportionally represented in all possible positions that are technically advanced positions like these. We have the full version of this code of conduct on the website posted at the bottom. Invite you to read just a brief version of the same, where we are promoting an inclusive community. Our events are open to all, one and all, regardless of gender, physical appearance, race, age, etc. We want women to excel in technology careers, and the sessions that we conduct and the events and we invite you to be part of our forum. You can choose to volunteer, to present technical content, to avail of the various conferences and events that we have posted. You must check the Women Who Code global website as well as the upcoming sessions of the Pune chapter. We have a focused mission to ignite and help our passionate engineers to contribute and to take away from our community. Look forward to engaging with all of you. I'll hand it over to today's speaker, Hussaina Begum from VMware.
Thanks, Gail. Let me start presenting my screen. Give me a second. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in on a Sunday. So let's get started. Hope you are able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So today we'll be talking about dynamic programming. So a little bit about myself. I'm a staff engineer at VMware. So earlier I worked with Cisco, Citrix, and IBM. So as part of this session, we'll be learning a little bit about what is dynamic programming and the building blocks and two different methods called memoization and tabularization. And we will also be talking about two properties of dynamic programming problems. One is overlapping subproblem, the other one is optimal substructure. And after discussing these things, we will have enough background to build a structure on basically how do we solve any problem using dynamic programming, given that it has all these properties, right? So that would be the eventual thing. And after that, we will go through some sample problems and their solutions using dynamic programming technique. Yeah. So I would like this to be interactive. So can you guys identify what problems I am referring to here? So you can use the chat window to send in your responses. Yes, correct. One is shortest distance. And any idea about the first problem, which has a spiral in it? Oh, no, Rubita, that is not the correct answer. So do you see any idea about like how it is growing, right? So the smaller blocks are actually growing to be bigger, right? If you see this. So basically this is a Fibonacci series. So you add earlier two values to get the next value, right? So it keeps on increasing. So they call it uh, as exponential problem to solve. So, and this one, I think the globe one, you can uh, guess, you can take a guess, like he is traveling around the world. So any idea who he is? So this is a traveling salesman. So we will talk about this as well. So the right side one is actually text alignment problem. So all these problems are potential candidates for dynamic programming technique. Yeah. So I think if you have attended last session, you would have seen that Trishal Patel, he would have spoken about how recursion can be used to solve the Fibonacci series. So basically, to find the nth Fibonacci number, you will find n minus 1 a Fibonacci number and then n minus 2 Fibonacci number, and we have a base condition. So let me run this program on my system. I have run it and captured the outputs here, but still I would like to show it. So what happens when we run this, when we time this program, right? So it was quick, right? Finding out for 5, 10, 20th Fibonacci number. Now you see, it takes more time. So it has taken more than 1 second. So earlier it was in milliseconds. So what is the problem with this solution, recursive solution? Just give me a second. My mouse has some problem. Yeah. So the time complexity of this problem can be solved by using this recurrence relation. So to find out nth Fibonacci number, you need to find out n minus 1 and n minus 2. So if you solve this recurrence relation using Little's, no, not Little's, Master's theorem, you will find out that the time complexity is exponential. So we know that exponential time complexity is like the worst, right? In the first session, we would have seen that exponential is the worst, and we should target towards quadratic or linear or log n kind of things, right? So we will go to a better solution for Fibonacci problem, but before that, let's understand what is dynamic programming. So This term was coined by Richard Bellman. So around that time, basically his supervisor was not giving any funding if he finds anything, any keyword as research in the application. So he coined this term dynamic programming, because it also means that optimizing a solution kind of thing. So basically it's a strategy to design algorithms to solve problems which have recurring sub problems. So in Fibonacci series, we saw that to find nth Fibonacci number, we were finding n minus 1 Fibonacci number and n minus 2 Fibonacci number. So if you have sub problems which are solved again and again, that is when we choose this strategy to solve the problems. And they are also typically applied to optimization problems. So you would have heard about find the shortest path, or find the longest substring, or find the minimum iterations or minimum calculations required to find out a problem solution. So that kind of things. So the other thing is that we can think of this as a careful brute force method also. So if you go to the recursion problem, there are multiple sub problems to solve, right? So it is like brute force. You go and you find out the solution for all possible ends here, right? So, but with dynamic programming, we will narrow that down to a set of sub problems only. We will find out which sub problems can be solved efficiently. I mean, without repeating the solution again and again. So that's the reason we call it as a careful brute force method also. Going forward, we will get to know these things in a better way. So any questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask those. So the improved solution to this Fibonacci problem is using a memoization technique. So let's think about a scenario where you are new to a certain city, and you wanted to go to the nearest temple or drugstore kind of thing, right? So what would you do? First, you will find out the path by going one block by block, right? And then on the second day, if you want to go there again, what would you do? You would not again do the same process, right? You instantly remember that yesterday I took this road, I took the left, I took the right kind of thing, right? So you remember the directions for the second day. So memorization is nothing but remembering already solved solutions, basically. So in this, if you can see the code snippet, so we are having a cache here in which we will store whichever problem which got solved. So let me talk about this tree here, right? So to solve Fibonacci of 5, we need Fibonacci of 4 and 3. So we will come back to 3 here. So we would also go, the recursion would go till Fibonacci of 3, and then eventually it will go to Fibonacci of 2, and then we will hit this base condition. So these are solved eventually. From this we get Fibonacci of 2, and from Fibonacci of 2, by adding these two things, we will get Fibonacci of 3. Now if you observe this, right, to solve Fibonacci of 3, we need Fibonacci of 2 and Fibonacci of 1. But it is already calculated and it is stored in the cache. So we will not repeat this calculation again. So the recursion would return directly, because memo of n has the result. So basically this condition would hit if n in memo, right? This is like dictionary. So this key is present in this. So we would get this result without calculating this again. So similar way, whatever is marked in red, these won't be called again. So they are fetched from the memory. So the time complexity of this is that it's O of n, and we will also have a space complexity of O of n because this memo has 1 to n elements. So memoization is that technique, and the other technique is also one more thing to note here is that this is a top-down approach. So we start with Fibonacci of 5 and then call these things, right? So the recursive calls are called in this fashion, and the results are calculated and then added up and returned, right? So instead of this, this problem can be solved in another efficient way, which is called tabularization technique or bottom-up technique. So in this, what happens is that we would start from the down solving the smaller sub-problems. So we know that Fibonacci series starts with 0 and 1 numbers, and then we build on top of it. So, and also we are storing only 2 previous values. So after this, once we get into I equal to 3, we would discard these things and we would only store these 3 values basically. So here the space complexity reduces because we are not remembering all the intermediate results, but last 2 previous results. So this is also one technique which would be used by the dynamic programming. So now let's come to the properties that we look for in a problem to figure out that whether we can apply dynamic programming to that problem or not, right? So the first property is overlapping subproblems. So as we discussed, Fibonacci series has a set of problems which are called multiple times, right? So in the tree, if you remember, Fibonacci of 2 gets called thrice when Fibonacci of 5 is called. So what we do is we will calculate the value of a subproblem for the very first time. Like I mentioned, we'll calculate fib of 1 only for the first time. So this recursion, if it goes in till fib 2, that is when we calculate it and store it in cache. And whenever we will look it up later. So this you can even relate to that map problem that I have mentioned. So the other property that we look for in the problems is optimal substructure property. So we call a problem has a optimal substructure property if we can divide that problem into 2 sub-problems, and if the optimal solution of subproblem 1 and optimal solution of subproblem 2 can be combined to get the overall optimal solution for the problem. So basically, globally optimal solution can be found from the locally optimal solutions. So one example is this shortest path problem. So let's say that you have to reach from source to destination, and in between there is a transient node, and the shortest path from the source to transient node is optimal, and then the path from transient node to destination node is also optimal. Then we can combine this and we can use these 2 paths to be included in the solution to the original problem. Okay, so we have covered all the basic things needed to solve a problem using dynamic programming. So what are the steps that you take to solve a problem? First thing is you have to identify and define the subproblems. So in case of shortest path, basically you have to define to reach the destination D, what all paths are there available to me, right? So that you can define as, you can start from the end and say that there is an in degree of nodes into the destination node, and you can optimize which previous node would be the best for me. So you have to divide the problem that way. So you can divide the uh, original problem into sub problems and then solve. Let's say that destination D node has three nodes, 3 degree nodes. So the sub problems will become source to transient node 1, transient node 2, transient node 3. So that would become a sub problem. So you can think whenever you find a problem, you can think of whether it has some sub problems to be solved. And the other part is you have to guess part of the solution. So basically in this, the guess would be if T1, T2, T3 are taking me to destination node, what would be my uh, last transient node? So you would take a guess whether it is T1 or T2 or T3. So the guessing part is this one. So, but you would just guess, but you would also calculate the cost to reach destination if you include T1 or T2 or T3. So that's why you are doing this careful brute force. So you would take a decision based on whichever gives you the shortest path, you would include that sub problem in your solution. So the third step is actually you have to relate the sub problem solutions. So basically you have to find a recurrence relation between those sub problem solutions. I could which example can I take? Yeah, we can go by the Fibonacci series itself. The recurrence relation for Fibonacci series is f of n minus 2 plus f of n minus 1. So that is how you are relating two sub problems together to find f of n. We can take another example and we can come to this later. So that is how you have to relate these sub problems. And the fourth step is you have to recurse and memorize. This is called the top down approach, or you can do the tabulation method to solve this problem. So this recurse and memorize we have already seen. I mean for Fibonacci series, this both approaches we have seen, right? So in memorization technique, you would have a cache memory of n elements where you would store this intermediate results. In tabulation technique, you start solving the problem from left to right, where you are solving the problem for the minimal sub problem, and you move forward. And the final thing is you need to solve the original problem. So solving the original problem is basically consider that we have a maybe I'm giving the intro a little early to the problems I'm going to solve. But if you consider matrix multiplication problem, you will be finding out the parenthesization of the series of matrix multiplications. And the final step would be to, let's say that you have two sub problems you have solved. The final step would be to do the final multiplication of these two sub problem results. So that would be the time taken to the solve the original sub problem. So you are basically consolidating all the solutions to get the solution to the original problem. So is it clear, guys? Do you have any questions? So Ishita, do you want me to repeat anything, or is there anything, any of these steps which is not clear? You can, okay, great. So she has no questions. So now let's get started with some of the dynamic programming problems. These are kind of very common questions that you can encounter in interviews, right? So one is longest common subsequence problem. So don't mistake this for the substring match problem. This is basically to figure out given two substrings. This is input one, this is input two. You have to find out uh, which characters match in these two strings uh, going forward from left to right, right? So it's a common subsequence. Basically, the characters could uh, need not be adjacent. There could be gaps, but still it has to be matching. It has to be present in both the strings. So for example, let's take this example of AAGC, GTTGC, and CACCTG. So basically, these things don't match. A matches with A, so this is included in the solution. And after that, G does not match with anything here. So, but C matches. So A and C are included. So this A and this C are included. And after that, there is again a C. So there is no C till the end. So if you include it, so it would become ACC, but that is of length 3 only. If you don't include this C and go with T, T matches this. So you can include ACT. And finally, there is a G which matches with the string 1. So you get the common subsequence of length 4. So this is the longest common substring. So this is the recursive solution that I have on the right side. So basically what you do is you can start from the end and you have to figure out whether if they match, you would add 1 to the result, and then you would start with n minus 1 and length minus 1 and length 2 minus 1. So that is what is being done here. Otherwise, what you do is you skip one of this character, whether it is in string 1 or in string 2, and then try to match the rest of the things. So I think you can see my mouse pointer, right? So in this case, there are two paths, right? So one is you ignore G and match this entire thing with this entire string. The other solution is you ignore this C and match this string with this entire string and find out the max of that. So these are like the two sub problems that we have. But if you expand out this tree, right, there could be sub problems which are calculated again and again. So you can, in this case, the sub problem is okay, let's go here. Maybe after two positions, if you take this TT and all this and CC and all this, right? So if you are solving this problem and you ignore C and then CAC and all this are being calculated, right? So this CAC problem could have been already part of one of this uh, if you start from this, right, n minus 1 kind of sub problem. I hope you are getting that what I'm trying to say. Okay, Shilpa has a question. Should the result have unique characters and not repeat? Not necessary, Shilpa. It is just that uh, it has to be in the same order. They should be in the right side of the string. If you have another C here, right, instead of a T, if there is another C, the common subsequent could be ACCTG. I mean, if the C was here before T, the common subsequence would have been ACCTG.
No, I'm talking about the last character in the first string. You have a last character as C, right? The first string, first string.
Okay.
Yeah. So then, what am I matching that with? C will again start with the next string, right, from the beginning, or is it just the last one? Because the length is not same, right? Both the strings. So that's why I'm a little
Correct. That's
confused.
why we are having two lengths here, right? So we are starting with length 1 and length 2 here, right?
Mhm.
You see this? We are starting from length of string 1 and length of string 2 till one of it becomes 0. That is when we stop.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So the substructure of the problem that I was trying to define is that, so we start here and here, right? And one possible solution is you remove C and then match. So this becomes length 1. You can just think of it as length 1, and this becomes length 2. And then you try to solve the problems and take the max out of it. So that is what this one will do. But similar to that, if you just remove this last characters and try to do this recursively, right? There would be a place where you are solving this CAC problem again and again. So that is where the optimization is needed. So this is because it is a recursive solution. It is exponential time. So we will go to the dynamic programming solution for this. So what you do is, if last if x of I and x of j match it, right? In that case, we would just add that one into the solution because one character has matched. Otherwise, what we do is, as I mentioned, right? You remove C and then take the rest of the string and match it with this other string. Otherwise, you take out G and match this substring with that first string and find out the max out of it. So let me, okay. I wanted to iterate through this problem using this table. So basically A and A does not match. So this is not true. So what we do is we find out uh, I minus 1 and j. So this is I and I, which is not matching. So I minus 1 and j is this. J, I and j minus 1 is this. So the max of this is 0. So you see this, we match with this and this. Whichever is the max, we put it here. C and A won't match. So we will do this again. C and G also does not match. This is 0. C and C matches. So what we do is 1 plus, again this same, so this equation, right? I minus 1 and j minus 1, which is 0. So we would add 1 here. And going forward, it is the same, right? Max of this and this, which would be 1, 1, 1, and 1. C and C match. 1 plus max of uh, this is the diagonal thing plus 1, so which is 1 again here. And here A and A match, so we put 1. And here A and A match, and then we take the diagonal item plus 1, which is 1 again. And this is max of these two, 1. And here A and C, max of these two is 1. This is again 1. This is also 1. So max of 0 and 1 is 1. 1 and 1 is 1. 1 and 1 is 1. Here there is a match. If you see this A and this C and this C. So what you do is you take this diagonal thing plus 1. So that is 2. And going forward, now you have to take a max of this and this. So it would be 2. And again 2, 2. This diagonal thing and plus 1. That is again 2. So actually C matches here only. So we will just put the same value here. Now max of this is 2. And since it matches C and C match, right? So the result is 1 plus diagonal of what you have. So it is 2 here again. Because till now we have match only for A and C. You can find out from here, right? Yeah. And here max of 2 on 2 is 2. Again, the same thing. Again, the same thing. Again, the same thing. But here, if you see, C and C match, and this diagonal thing plus 1 you have to put. So here the match maximum thing is A, C, C. If you see here, A, C, and C. So now let's go to the next row. Here it is max of these things. Again, this 1, 2, 2. Here T matches, right? Then it would become 3. We added to this diagonal item 1. So here T matches. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Now there is G. So it is max of this. Here it is 3. Max of this is 1. Sorry. So now G matches here, right? So we would have 1 plus 1, which is 2. Max of 2 on 2 is 2. 2 on 2 is... No, here there is a match. G matches with this G. So it is 2 plus 1, so which is 3. And here max of 3. And here is max of 3. Here actually G matches. So you have to take this 3 and add 1. So which is 4. And it's max of this, right? So finally what we have got is the maximum longest common subsequence is 4. So you can have 4 characters in this in the right side of only right side of the string, right? So this is how we solve this longest common subsequence problem. So I have an implementation of this. Let me just show this. So this is a recursive one. Maybe we can just run it and time it and check how much time it takes. So so 1 second it took. It took less time. Actually, it is to compile this, and it would have taken time to do that. But again, you can clearly see that it took less time compared to the first problem. So these differences you will be able to see when you change this input, right? If you give lengthy arrays, right? So you can clearly see the difference that dynamic programming solution adds to it. So yeah, Now let's move on to the next problem. So I hope this solution is clear. So in this, basically what happened is we are trying to find out the prefixes. I mean, we are trying to solve the sub problem of prefixes. So by guessing whether I will take this or not, whether this matches or not, right? So this, I hope if this is clear. Yeah, the next problem I wanted to talk about is 01 knapsack problem. Basically, we will have a bag which can carry a maximum weight of W, and we have n items to pack inside it in a way that each item's value, I mean, the total items value is maximized, and the weight is within this limit. So for this problem, can you guess what would be the guess to start with this dynamic uh, programming algorithm, right? So the first case would be what? So you have weights of W1, W2, W3 to N, and they have values like this. So, and this is the given weight, right? And you look at one item, then what would you guess? Any idea? What would be the first guess? Whether this item is included in the bag or not, right? That is your guess. Whether you include it or exclude it. So that is the first guess. So if you include it, what happens? Your problem would be solved for weight minus W1. So your sub problem is modified. So you are targeting a smaller problem. Yeah. So this is the equation basically to solve this problem. So the first thing is you exclude it. Sometimes you exclude it because your weight is more than the allowed weight. So in that case, you would try to fill the bag with rest of the items. So this is that sub problem. And the other sub problem is you include it, but your weight capacity has decreased, and your maximum value has included this value of item that you have included. So if you look at the algorithm, basically your weight should be less than the available weight. And if you have reached the base condition, then you would return V of I. Otherwise, you return 0. So the exclusion of I, you will solve again using this recursive solution. So you have you are starting with I minus, I think we are starting with nth element to the 0th element. So we have excluded I because for some reason, I mean, we will come to that. And we are starting to solve this problem for the available weight. So if weight of I is greater than available weight, right? That is when we use this exclude I. Otherwise, we will calculate inclusion of I, how much the value you can get out of it, right? And you take the maximum out of this. So that is what you return. So in this problem, right, can you guys answer what would be the result in this case? You have weights 1, 5, 3, 4, and the maximum weight is 8. And these are the value if you include these items. So what would be the maximum value? Can you quickly solve this problem manually and give me the result? At max, you can include items of weight 8. So you have 1, 5, 3, and 4. So the combinations that you could use is 5 and 3, or 1, 3, 4. That's all I can think of, or anything less than 8, right? So you could have 3 and 4 also as one of the solution, and 5 and 1 also as one of the solution, but not to the maximum capacity. But if you think that yeah, I see the answers coming, it is 29. Yes, that is correct. So basically the answer is 4, 3 and 1. So 15, 5 and 9. So we have included 3 items, basically 1, 3 and 4 and their weights. So we have maximized it to 29. So if you pick 5 and 3, what happens? 19 will come. If you pick yeah, anything less than that would be like less value. So that is the solution for this. So this is I think this, yeah, we have covered this dynamic programming equation here itself. How are we doing on time? So I just want to see, we are at 5, right? Shall we can go over this problem like longest common subsequence problem, or we can go to the next problem, because we also need to cover a quiz as well. So let me go to the next problem. So basically what you could do is, this is like you solve this problem by having the maximum weight, and you start including items. Let's say this is the first item with value 2. You can no, this is weight and this is value. So if the bag's capacity is 1, okay, let me, then only you can include this. So and let's say that this is weight 2, right? This is when you can include this, and the value would be 3 in this case. So I think here it is 2. So we can start filling this table using this formula, and we will get what is the maximum that you can maximum value you can get from including these items in this last cell. So I think we can skip it for now. We will go to the next problem. So yeah, so the other problem that we will look at is matrix chain multiplication. So matrix multiplication has this property of associativity. So you can multiply A and let's say there are 3 matrices like this, right? A, B, C. So you can multiply A and B first, and finally you can multiply the product of A and B with C. Or you could multiply B and C first, and that product with A also. So here you can clearly see that the first one is expensive, right? So the first one is A into B, which is like n into 1 and 1 into n. So the final result that you get is n by n matrix, and you are going to multiply that with n into 1 matrix. So which would take n square multiplications. That is what we call it as a cost of the multiplication. But if you go with option 2, where it is B into C would result in 1 by 1 matrix, and it is easy to calculate that 1 by 1 matrix with n by 1 matrix. So it is like only n multiplications you will have. So we need to optimize this number of multiplications we can have in the matrix chain multiplication. So usually this problem is defined this way. So I have just taken 4 matrices, and their dimensions are given in a array format like this. So basically A size would be S1 into S2, B size would be S2 into S3, so on and so forth. So cost of multiplying A into B would be S1 into S2 into S3. So these many mathematical multiplications will be needed to solve A into B. And similar to that, cost of C into D would be like this. So this is the equation for solving this problem. So basically what you do is, if I equals to Z, we will return 0, because multiplying same matrix with same is 0 cost. So, but for multiplying matrices from 1 to n, right? So we can think of it as I and J. So S1 and S5, you can think of it as indexes I and J. So for calculating cost of I and J, this is the equation. You would find out something in between. So this basically we can solve dynamic uh, programming problems using either from the left side to the right side or right side to the left side. But this is kind of unique problem where you would be solving it as a substring kind of thing. So there is no suffix kind of thing or prefix kind of thing, but it is a substring kind of problem, because we are planning to optimize them in between operations, sub problems. So here what we try to do is cost of ik plus cost of k plus 1 and j. And finally, this is the other factor, right? Which is the cost of multiplying these two sub problems. So I think I should have one more slide about this. Okay, I have not included it. Uh, I hope you are getting that problem, right? So basically, let's say that you have parenthesized A, B, and C, right? So that we can think of it as A of I to K. So I is 1, K is 3. And you are calculating K plus 1 and J. So that is uh, basically 4 and 4. Cost of 4 and 4 would be 0. But then you have to calculate whatever product you got here into D. So that is the cost of the multiplication here. So this is nothing but this kind of equation. So finally, whatever you have ABC into D, so ABC would result in a matrix called A prime or something like that, right? So A prime into D. So whatever uh, multiplications are needed to multiply A prime into D is this cost. So you need to minimize all this cost for finding out the uh, proper parenthesization to solve this problem. So this problem is about finding out what would be the minimum number of multiplication needed to solve a given matrix chain multiplication. So I think for this also I should have some solution. You can see the screen, right? So basically you are solving this problem for I to J. Uh, so for given size n, you start with I equals to 1 and j is n minus 1. And this solution we will iterate for k of I to j. It's between k value of I and less than j basically. So in this also we are exercising the property of having optimal solutions to the problem, and then uh, finding out the, I mean, consolidating the final solution, right? Yeah. So in case of matrix chain multiplications, we have defined the subproblems as what are the uh, s- uh, whether we are where should we place the parenthesis in the matrix multiplication, right? So those are like identifying the subproblems, and the guess here is again, I will multiply two matrices or not, right? Or I would expand out the parenthesization around that, around the let's say matrices I to j. I will divide it into I to k and k plus 1 to j. So that is how we are guessing and solving a part of the solution, and we are relating these subproblems because ABC can be solved by AB and C or A and BC, right? And in this we have used tabularization so that if we go to the here, right, we are storing A of I mean DP of IJ. So I have not written that table, but you would start with smaller numbers. Like if you multiply two matrices, you would have this let's say that, okay, let me go to, yeah, this one, right? So let's call it A1, A2, A3 and A4. So you will solve it for A1 and A2, or A2 and A3, or A3 and A4. So that way, these are like the smaller problems you are calculating and memorizing that result so that it can be used in this equation efficiently. So this k value will keep on changing, right? So this is basically cost of 1 to 4. So then what you would be calculating is 1 to 2 and 2 to 4. So 1 to 2 would be the minimal subproblem that you can solve by using the basic matrix multiplication problem, right? You would have a result like this, S1, S2, S3. So similar to that, here also, instead of solving cost of 2 to 4 would become bigger problem because it would have multiple combinations, right? So instead of that, what you could target is first solve C to D and store it in the table like what we have seen, right? If you can draw a two-dimensional table like this and store that C to D solution and then reuse it finally. So that is how this tabularization works in matrix chain multiplication. And also, like how many parentheses can be formed for this problem? There is a formula called uh, I don't recollect it completely, but 2nC2 or something of that sort. So for this, for 4 matrices, it would result in 5 different parentheses, which can be used to solve this problem, out of which we have to select one solution with the minimum cost. So yeah, that's all I had. So these are some references which you can go through. These MIT lectures are really good, but it takes time to go through each and every uh, lecture, which is like 1 hour. I tried to condense few things so that I would just capture the gist of dynamic programming. So you can always refer to these things, and let's test our understanding. So I'll give it to Gail. Gail, can you present the your screen? Before that, actually, if you have any questions uh, from any of these problems. I think either it is, yeah. Yeah, we have a Slack channel created for this particular session in Women Who Code Pune. So you can join that Slack channel. Gail has given that link. Please do join that channel. So we will be posting couple of homework problems there so that you can give it a try. So I think there are no questions. I'll give it to Gail for the quiz. So thanks for joining on a Sunday. We really appreciate your presence. So Gail has shared the quiz link. Please open that and I'll stop sharing. So, and also with Gail, we have Tanishka. She'll be taking you through the quiz so we can discuss any problems from the quiz, right? So she'll be assisting us with that. Okay. Over to you, Gail and Tanishka. Thank you all.
Okay, shall we start with the quiz?
Yes, Tanishka.
Hope everyone has opened the link which Gail has shared on the chat. So which of the following is our property of dynamic programming problem? One is optimal substructure, overlapping subproblems, greedy algorithm, both optimal substructure and overlapping substructure. We'll give you a few seconds to answer this. This is a straightforward question. Yeah. Gail, would you like to show the results? Yes, mostly
Okay.
everyone got it right. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll have the next question. So when dynamic programming, okay. So when this is a true and false question, when dynamic programming is applied to a problem, it takes far less time as compared to the other methods that don't take the advantage of overlapping subproblems. So is the statement true or false? Okay, so I think everyone got it right. So the question is if a problem can be solved by combining optimal solutions to non-overlapping problems, the strategy would be called dynamic programming, divide and conquer, greedy algorithm, or recursion.
So this
So
is
this time,
something which we have not covered, but be careful about. So we can think of this problem as a binary search problem. So there are non-overlapping problems, right? So you take the list and you either go left or right. So there is no overlap between the subtrees that you traverse. So what do we call such a problem solving method?
okay, right.
Is it
So just to
actually?
add,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Go
just to
ahead.
add to it, yeah, the in divide and conquer, basically the problem is divided into small non-overlapping subproblems. So if you have done merge sort and even binary search problem, so you'll find that basically it's all about non-overlapping subproblems and an optimal solution for each of the subproblems. So we can move ahead to another question. Okay, so consider five cities A, B, C, D, and E. So we have to find the shortest path between A and E through B, C, and D cities. So which property of dynamic programming would be applicable here? So basically you have to traverse from city A to E and you have given three intermediate routes, that is B, C, and D. So you can think of dividing it and then coming to an answer. Oh, okay, so the correct answer is basically optimal substructure, and that is because to find the shortest part between city A and city E, we first have to find the shortest part between A, B, A to C, and A to D. So basically, once you can compute that which is the shortest, like which is the nearest city to A, which in this case seems to be B. So if I can say that A and B are the nearest, only then I can move ahead with B to E. So in that case, what I'm doing is I'm creating substructures, I'm creating subpaths, and I'm finding the most optimal path among them. So I hope this one is clear. We can move to the next question. Okay. Uh, When a top-down approach of dynamic programming is applied to a problem, it usually dash. So basically here you have to talk in terms of the time complexity and the space complexity. So it's one of the advantage of dynamic programming. You can think in that way. Okay, so the answer is 50% of you have got it right. So basically, it decreases the time complexity and increases the space complexity. That is because in dynamic programming, when we use the top-down approach, which is basically a memoization technique, where you store the previously calculated values. So by storing the previously calculated values, you are indeed reducing the time complexity, but by storing the values, you're increasing the space complexity. So basically, in dynamic programming, we usually trade space complexity for an optimal time complexity. Okay. So suppose we have to find the eighth term in a Fibonacci series. So, and we are using a recursive implementation initially. So the arguments passed to the function calls would be as follows. So if you can see the table over there, in order to find the eighth term, if you remember the formula, so according to the formula to know the value of eighth term, you have to sum up the nth minus first term and nth minus 2th term. So in this case, it's Fibonacci of 7 plus Fibonacci of 6. So again, to find out the Fibonacci of 7 and 6 individually, you have to break it down again into n minus 1 plus n minus 2. And this goes on so on up to unless you reach Fibonacci of 0 and Fibonacci of 1, which you already know. So you have to find which property it uses. Okay, is that the final response? Okay, so I think this was a bit maybe tricky or uh, like the question is a bit related, but when we are talking in terms of properties of dynamic programming, so in this case, the answer will be overlapping subproblems. That is because if you see, for example, from the function calls, we can see that Fibonacci of 4 is calculated twice and the Fibonacci of 3 is calculated thrice. So the same subproblem is solved many times, and hence the function calls, they show the overlapping property. So the answer would be overlapping subproblems. Okay. In large warehouses like Amazon, the decision to use the resources efficiently to minimize the cost while box packaging products for delivery can be achieved using which of the following algorithms? So basically, you have your orders, multiple orders, and then they have to decide that in which carton or in which bag they have to pack your multiple orders to ship out for delivery. Okay, I think we have the answer. So basically, it's knapsack only because you have to put maximum goods in a cardboard box in order to minimize the packaging cost. So we can move to the next question. So you're given few blue balls, green balls, and red colored balls. Now every day for a month, you are given a new ball whose color would be either blue or green or red. So you have to report the total count of blue balls, green balls, and red colored balls daily. So which property will you apply to smartly maintain the count? So you can consider that initially you are given X, Y, and Z. And what you have to do is that whenever you're given a ball, you know that it would be either blue or green or red. So you just have to add +1 to that particular bunch. So basically, you already have a count stored, and now you have to update the count. Right, so the answer would be overlapping subproblems over here. That's because you'll maintain a count of total green balls, blue balls, and red balls on the first day itself. And thereafter, we just have to add +1 to the respective bunch of balls. So in that case, we avoid counting the balls again and again daily. So hence, it's an overlapping subproblem. So, which of the following problems is not solved using dynamic programming? Now we have seen 0, 1 knapsack problem, uh, matrix chain multiplication problem. Oh, okay.
I think there is a confusion here. Let me pitch
Yeah.
in actually. So, edit distance problem, if you can think of it, is like we will give a string, and by making minor modifications, you have to transform it into another string. So that is the problem. So basically, if you do Google search, right, when you do a typo, so it automatically suggests, are you meaning to search for this, right? So how does it find out the nearest valid keyword in the dictionary is by editing the distance. Let's say that you typed in DOOT, right? So it would change the T to R. So, and it would say, do you mean door, right? So that problem can again be solved using dynamic programming. So basically what you do there is that you either modify the character to match a valid word, or you insert one more character to make it a valid word, or you delete a character to match it to a proper word, right? So that way, it's again like three sub problems we have. So you will have by including a character, or by deleting a character, or by replacing a character. So you would find out the cost for that, and you would take the minimum cost solution from the sub problems. So that's why edit distance problem can also be solved by dynamic programming. But fractional knapsack problem is that it's different from 0, 1 knapsack problem, where you either include a item or you exclude a item. But in case of fractional knapsack, what happens is you can include half of a item, or 3/4 of a item, or 1/3 of a item. It can be, the problem space grows, so it becomes a very difficult brute force problem to solve, because you cannot do a careful brute force on this problem. So that's why actually fractional knapsack problem is the one which you cannot solve using dynamic programming. I hope that is clear, because you cannot you cannot define a sub problem, right? So you cannot define that, okay, there is an item 1 in the array, and I would take 1/3 of it or 2/3 of it. You can't properly define the sub problem to solve it using dynamic programming. So that is the difficulty with fractional knapsack problem. I hope that is clear. Yeah. So before we close, I would like to give few more examples of dynamic programming that you can solve. I mean, there are many more interesting problems which can be solved using dynamic programming. So in one of the MIT class lectures, they talk about a guitar fingering problem or a piano playing problem, right? So basically, if you are playing some notes, if you have used your little finger, you should be able to find out another note in an efficient way, so that you don't stretch your fingers, or you don't make difficult finger presses, right? So looks like you can't press the third and fourth finger together efficiently. I mean, it is very difficult to do, right? So all these problems, like, you can think of it as like you solve it for one finger, and the sub problem would become how do you use the four other fingers to make the note, right? So that way, so you have to look for what are the sub problems, and after solving all the sub problems, how can you combine them together to get the solution, overall solution. So if you can think of some problems and try to apply this 5 steps, right? And you can find out that, okay, I can't go any further because this particular property does not apply to my problem, and you can say that, okay, I can't use dynamic programming to solve this problem. So yeah, that is something I wanted to talk about. And yeah, there are many dynamic programming problems you can find online, and they are a bit complex to start with, but if you find out and if you get a hang of this, right, if you find out these patterns, how you can apply this strategy to such problems, right, it would be very easy to solve even complex sounding problems. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. If there are any questions, you can unmute yourself or you can type in the chat. Yes, sure. I'll share the slides on the channel, uh, Slack channel, Women Who Code Slack channel. And we will also be sharing some practice problems so that you can give it a try. Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks, Gail and Tanishka, for taking care of the quiz. Oh, we
Thanks,
hope to
Asena.
see you
Good
in the,
session.
yeah. Thank you. So we have next session on graphs, I guess. Or let me just confirm that. We have a session on JavaScript and data structures. And please look out for the invite in meetup.com. So we would like to see you there as well. Thanks for being an amazing audience. So enjoy your rest of the Sunday. Thanks again. I will share the reference URL. Sure. I mean, it's in my last slide. I would share the slides. And this class has multiple lectures, and there are YouTube links to them as well. So from this MIT page, you can go to those lectures, video lectures. Yeah, they are very good. Okay, thank you all. Have a nice weekend. End of weekend. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Bye.